Welcome to Pencils with Erasers, hosted by Danny Sully Sullivan. Get ready for a wild ride as we bring you the untamed and unbelievable stories from the trading floors of America, both on and off. Buckle up for an unparalleled journey into the dynamic world of finance. Without further ado, let's dive into the extraordinary tales with Sully.
Hey guys, before we get to the podcast, just a quick note here. Someone contacted me in the last week about an idea that he had about another floor storyline, and I thought it was brilliant. I loved it, and we're going to be starting to write a script here in the next couple of weeks. So if anybody out there thinks they have something that deserves to be on the big screen, little screen, just get in touch with me. MogatorMediaCapital.com. And also, again, anybody that's interested in investing, take 10 or 15 minutes. I'll explain our business model. And believe me, I think you'll like it. It's as simple as that. So MogatorMediaCapital.com in the upper right-hand corner, and either content or investment tab, and just fill out the 5-second form, and we can chat. Thanks a lot. On to the podcast. Hey, welcome to another edition of Pencils with Erasers. I got my co-host Mark Eisen, Philadelphia stock veteran of 20 plus years, and our guest is Michael Frank. Don't know which one to always call you. Is it Mike or Michael? Another 22, 23 years on the floor. And welcome, man. How are you?
I am great. Thank you.
Good. So you know what? We're gonna start this out by asking you, how did you get in the industry? Did you go to school? What was, what connections did you have, if any?
So I was maybe a junior in college at Fairleigh Dickinson here in Teaneck Business, and my brother maybe I was a sophomore. My brother was a senior, and he met his wife to be Andrea, and the father-in-law was a stock market affiliate doing new issues and stuff, and would go in every morning at 6:30 in the morning with another famous trader named Warren Schwartz, who was in a book. And my brother's first year trading on the floor, late 70s, made like $80,000 that year. And my dad was a executive for Sam Goody's, the record store that was in the tri-state area, about 25 or 30 stores, who was my grandfather, as it was. And he was making 42.5 and, got a Cadillac to drive around in. And I thought to myself, 42.5, 80,000. I think I'm smarter than my brother, or faster, or something. Like, I want to be involved in this. So senior year, I was offered to hop in the car at 6:30 in the morning to drive in every day to listen to them sort of grill Eddie and teach him. And he was on the trading floor, which was brutal as a senior in college. Like, just, like, who wants to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get in there? And the car ride was in an old Chevy, maybe it was a Caprice convertible, a gigantic car, and he would never put the top up, even if it was raining. And going through the tunnels was just fucking horrific, wearing a suit and trying to hold my face down between my legs and not breathe in the smut of the buses and the trucks and stuff like that. But I was on the floor and I was like watching what was going on. So that was sort of it for me. I saw some crazy stuff early on, but that was it for me. And I ended up graduating and heading down to the Philadelphia Stock Exchange right after graduation, took some bar mitzvah money, borrowed some money, hobbled together 25 or 30 grand to come down, and started, moved outside to Mapleshade on the high-speed line out of Philadelphia for a year, and then was on exchange, and then moved right into Philadelphia after. So I started out on the Philly floor on the floor when it was on, I think it was on Samson before it moved to 19th and Market.
What year was that, Mike?
80.
Okay.
I don't know when we moved to 19th and Market. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
80.
that was probably like
82?
80, yeah, 82, 83, something like that.
Yeah, it was a huge upgrade from the that floor, which was, tight and just craziness there. So
Was it the 11th floor, Mike?
yeah, I think so. It was a pigsty. It was just trading. It was rambunctious, but I was a young buck, and it was good times, and heavy drinking and partying and trading and learning and being involved. It was quite a change from North Jersey in school, taking 12 credits and sort of hanging out.
Did you know, like when you walked on the floor, what was your first initial reaction when you just on the floor? Were you intimidated? Were you like, hey, this is
No, I had been on the American Stock Exchange floor, sort of helping, like, while he was trading and running some tickets and doing some stuff, and I'd seen the antics and things going on. I'd seen what they do to other people on the floor as new traders, where they powder their shoes and they put little hatchets on their back and make fun. I'd seen actually on the Amex they had a really nice way of initiating new stock brokers, and they would throw up a symbol that didn't exist, and they'd send a new broker in. And 10 or 20 brokers will be in on it. They'd make this giant crowd, and they'd be yelling and screaming like they're trading, but in reality, and they're moving the stock around. But in reality, it doesn't exist. And they try and get him to come in and buy 20,000 shares, but they don't let him into the pit. So they're pushing on him. And eventually, when they let him in, the stock has already run $2. And when he executes and comes back, the people are supposed to tell him, no, that was a limit order. You fucked up. Now get in there and sell it out because we have an error. And then he'd have to fight his way back in, kind of thing. And the whole thing was a joke. And like some people, and you could have a heart attack over something like that. Your first trade and you're down 50K in an error account or something. It's just insane. But so I was pretty aware of that. So coming to the Philly floor, just trying to simulate and learn how to trade and learn how to write tickets and keep track of your positions on a little notepad and stuff like that.
What'd you think of the people on the Philly floor, being from New York?
A lot of South Philly people. I loved it. After hours we'd go out and then we'd head down to South Philly. The parents always had something sitting on the stove, like you could show up at 1 a.m. or something. I enjoyed Jim's Steakhouse. I used to go to Pat's and Gino's if we were very, very late and stuff. To me it was very similar, family orientated, camaraderie. It's such a limited thing that nothing compares to it. The amount of friendships that you make. So even the worst person on the floor that you might be upset with and screaming at, they had a badge on. They made a trade, it cleared. That's that. They were, bona fide traders. Maybe you didn't like their personality or whatever, but what are you going to do in the real world? People, and when you come off the floor and start looking around, people are, nowhere near as I'll say legitimate or something like that. You have no idea. Like, guy's got a badge, he's got a clearing agent, he's cleared, his check clears, his trade clears. That's it.
Yeah.
When in the real world, you don't have any way, like nobody's been through there, nobody's checked them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you remember when on the Philly, like say your first trade or not your first trade, but your first big trade maybe, or first error?
I was young and
Argument?
stupid. I was young, stupid, naive. I was more interested in partying and trying to get with chicks than I was in understanding what was actually in front of me. So I was a novice trader trying to buy, something on the bid and selling on the offer, and maybe was hedging or not. While some people around me were doing reversals in computer vision when interest rates were 19% and raking in short stock and killing it. And I just, was too stupid or too naive or not educating myself enough to understand what was going on to really, make a lot more money than I was making.
Got it.
Hey, Mike, real quick. It was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine actually over the weekend who I worked with years ago on the PHLX, and I was telling him a little bit about these podcasts and everything about, and I said that, and we always ask people, what they could do to change things and all that kind of thing. And he said to me that same thing. He always played it very conservatively, but did well. And he said, you know what? I wish I was 100 up rather than 10 up on all the markets. I mean, you say that now, but back then he was making some money, and things were okay. But now it's like, wow, why wasn't I more aggressive?
I will say my claim to fame was, I don't remember what year it was, before 84 when I left, but Jeff Yoss came on the floor as Philadelphia Trading. And he walked into my crowd to make his first trade. It might have been Tesoro or Computer Vision or something. And I helped him write his first ticket. He didn't understand how to fill in the ticket or something. And
No shit.
many years later, and being, obviously they're Susquehanna, they're gigantic, and, he's a wealthy guy and is doing all sorts of good things in the world with his money. So good for him.
And, I was going to ask you prior to this, and maybe Jeff would be one of your examples, but do you remember anyone, intimidating you? Do you remember, anyone in the crowd that was just like over your head where you were bowing to them just because
there were people like that when you realize, like, they'd walk up to the screen and they'd look at it and they had like sort of, I'll call it a computer in their head, and they'd be, I'll sell these 10, I'll buy these 10, and I'll do this and this. And I still didn't understand reversals and conversions and things like that. And so they were just had it in their head. They understood the whole thing. Who was it? Michael Weber was one of those guys. I think his name was.
Yeah.
Weber,
yeah.
Yeah. He was sort of like that. There's, a couple other people. I do remember being in, I think it was Tesoro with Jeff, and we were trading, and it was like a 2-tier deal. And you had to submit your stock. So we spoke to FOC's back office, because we needed to borrow stock, and Jeff, I guess, was gonna take the other side of the deal, like he was gonna deliver and everything. And they're like, "How much stock do you need us to borrow?" And I'm like, I don't know, 3,000 shares, 5,000 shares. Like, "Oh, we got you covered." And then Jeff said 250,000, and they said, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "Yeah, 250." And they're like, "Say that again," kind of thing. He's a big trader then. He understood what was going on. And he was like, I guess he had the Midas touch or something, smart, this, lucky, whatever it is, a combination of thereof. But he did well. Like, he did well not doing the deal and paying the tender and doing all that kind of stuff or whatever. And he figured it out, and good for him.
You know what, Jeff, again, my just personal opinion, since I clerked for him for a short period of time, but remember the Monchek Weber?
Yeah. The reams of paper, different prices.
Yeah.
It was basically, they gave you the theoretical value on the option. And when he first came down, now again, time, all that stuff, I'm just not good at. But what I do remember the most is being on the Monchek Weber and having no one behind me trying to get on. No one. I had that thing to myself for.
Oh, you're printing out all the sheets with different vols, different prices.
Yep.
They
gave me the volatility, and then they're like little skinny, like cash.
Yeah. And you turn them for different prices to get them. Yeah. That was being able to use that in the middle of the trading day when vol is pumping or dumping, and being able to reprice things is sort of important, unless you're really that good in your head and you can understand when vol goes down or vertical changes or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, again, he would just they remember Eric and Arthur and Meyer Zizzy and Andy.
Yeah.
I would have, 30, 40 of these so-called strips. And
should have stayed in the firm.
I have people give me shit about that all the time. I sure wouldn't be doing this now.
No, you'd be
somewhere in the Caribbean.
No, you'd probably still be working. I just at the PHLX reunion, I just ran into a guy. He's 40 years on the floor making markets still in the PHLX.
Mark, do you know who that is?
he's a quick intro, but he still works for Jeff.
Oh, he still works for Jeff. Oh,
Yeah, 40 years.
Was this Sal Oliano or Jerry Powell?
I think
Could have been those
it's
guys.
Foul. He's a pretty laid back
Okay.
guy.
Yeah, real laid back beard, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mike, I'm going to end it with and then maybe again 3 months, 6 months. All the other market makers were complaining that I was on the Moncheck Weber too long, and they had to go out and get another one. But my personal opinion, that's what Jeff brought to Philly. He brought the theoretical value of the option. He's the first one to figure that out, and it was not really Jeff. I mean, he figured it out obviously, but this Moncheck Weber was a game changer. Complete game changer.
He was, he came out of the SUNY schools, and they were playing poker, and then they took over like high lie betting, became the house, and horse track betting, and then did they did a lot of stuff. They understood odds and and stuff. And we now know that everyone that gets hired there has to play poker while they're being hired. So it's important stuff to understand things like that. So I mean, the floor is sort of done at this point. Although I just ran on my Amex reunion. I just ran into Steve Rodriguez, who was my clerk, my DK clerk, who would show up early, and he was thanking me for everything, like because with the money I paid him, he bought a house. But he's still a broker on the option broker on the New York Stock Exchange via the Amex, and they're doing ridiculous execution. There's still a lot of stuff going on, and then there's the big names, the Citadels and Susquehanna still have representatives there trying to take a piece of all the action that they're trying to cross and stuff. It's much more institutionalized, and I still believe liquidity lacks for the crowds offered greater liquidity, but it is what it is. It's it's all digitized.
So okay, let's to end it with my personal feelings about those guys. They're just class acts. They treated me so well. They really did. I just really
Good guys. All the
great,
worked hard, put risk capital, did the right thing. Nothing bad to say about them.
Yep.
And Mike, what year did you go to the Amex, like from the PHLX?
84, 85. I decided that it was time to move up. I moved up to New York into on the right at the World Trade Towers there at a place called Gateway Plaza, which is where I got the name for my company eventually, Gateway Partners. But then I would walk over to the American Stock Exchange. I had more money. Seats were much more expensive. There was more opportunity there. It was number 2, in comparison to the CBOE, but it was still, pretty good.
So you went.
What about?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go.
I'll say what about the difference of the people working on the Amex compared to the PHLX in terms of backgrounds, culture, things like that? What was there a big difference?
I'm gonna say the Philly floor is filled with, I guess, more related people in terms of everyone sort of knew each other more from South Philly. All the correction booth, all those good-looking women that were there were all sort of knew everybody. In fact, one of them married one of the Susquehanna people. The Amex was considerably bigger. They had the rafters, all the orders coming down. There was hand signaling way more there. I'd say it was more professional, bigger markets, and more rounded people from Long Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, and all around. Like I stood in crowds with guys that were medical doctors, that gave up and came to trade and things like that. Maybe it was that way in Philly, I don't know, but it was a certain breed of person wants to come down on the floor and bump shoulders and yell and scream and things like that. It's not for the light of heart. And typically, the bigger you are and the stronger you are, it's a little easier with the crowds. And it was mainly, I'm going to say it was more men in New York than women, although there's lots of women and clerks in the crowds, but in terms of brokers and stuff like that. But no, it's same kind of breed of person, same thing.
Was there any main reason why you left Philly to go to the Amex? Was there like one reason, or is it just because it was more?
My brother was up there. It was bigger. There was more opportunity. Seats were more expensive because you could make more money because it was just bigger crowds and more order flow. It was a function of order flow, right? The seat rental was a function of what you can make. The Amex in its heyday, seats were renting for $20,000 a month. You know,
Yeah.
and there was a reason for that, because there was, you know, a lot. They had the XMI pit, they had, you know, a lot going on. They also had hot stocks too. Like there's a lot of stocks there, HSN and things like that, that were super hot, which caused other need for, you know, people wanting to rent, you know, to trade stocks or to broker stocks.
Okay, so you get to the Amex. Just is there a standout story where, you know, again, maybe your biggest winning day, losing day era? Let's just start with winning day. Do you remember a winner that one day you walked out of that place going, "I'm the king of the hill"?
You know, business trading is when you're sort of trading, and even if you have a great day, the next day could be, you know, really a disaster. Like every day is sort of a new day, depending on if you're hedging down or you're not, or whatever. You're taking some risk. Maybe you're leaning long or short, or long vol or short vol. So I'm going to say you tend to remember the losing days more than the winning days, because the losing days make you, you know, want to just question everything about life or something. 87 crash. I was up there, and I was working for a guy named, I think his name was Michael Golden and Ron Schneider. It was called Maverick Capital. And they were premium sellers, and they had hired me as a trader. A typical deal was, you know, you make 50% of your net, and then 60% as you made more money and stuff. And they were short traders, and he always used to yell at me like, you gotta sell everything. Like that's the way to win. That's the way to win. That's the way to win. And I was the only person in the firm of, I don't remember how many traders there, I'll say a dozen, who was a short player. And 87 crash happened. And it was just brutal. I was like long vol, so I was up in the rafters in Texaco. And you know, Texaco was falling like dollars, like every tick or something like that. And that reminds me, I will point out above my shoulder, this way is my American Stock Exchange placard for being there. But this way is a picture that someone on the floor took of the Quotron, which is what we use to look at quotes and look at options and stuff. And this is the closing bell in 1987, with the Dow down 20% and stocks down 10, 20, 30, you know, crazy, crazy numbers.
Yeah.
So Maverick, which we cleared Bear Stearns, lost 30 million. And I don't know what we capitalized at. I'm going to say 20 million. So we lost like 30. I don't know the exact numbers. We were bankrupt the next day. And but we were big traders. I had made money, but my money is in a account under me, but in a joint account, right? Like they all go under one company. So the company was illiquid, so my money was gone. And I moved on to try and, you know, like it was just a disaster for me to lose all that capital in my account. 60 or 70% of it was mine. But I moved on, and the firm actually got refinanced by the clearing agent, who wanted to put them back in business because they knew they'd never get their money back, but they knew that they had a good chance of getting their money back because they were a very profitable firm, and they were paying, you know, exorbitant or lots of commissions and stuff like that. So they went back and eventually made gazillions of dollars. I ended up eventually affiliating with a gentleman named Jeff Wilson, may he rest in peace, who was on the floor, a bit of a gambling hotshot playboy out of Rock Rimmon, I think it's Rock Rimmon, Connecticut. And we were, it was me, him, and Steve Siegel, the first sort of 3 people in Rock Rimmon that later became 100 people, trading on all the floors of the exchanges, trading upstairs, trading perks, primes, and scores. We became a real force, a very gigantic market making and upstairs trading firm.
What year was that, Mike?
That's 89. And then in 95, Jeff, who had amassed, you know, I don't know how much money, a lot of money, was not sort of picking up the phone when you wanted to talk about, we had tons of traders. I was responsible for the traders. I was looking at risk upstairs. He was not responsive. Having a partner that's not responsive, who's flying around in private jets to go gamble and chase, you know, whatever he's chasing, was not good. And that's when I formed Gateway Partners. And forced a breakup of the firm, of the firm, and we sort of went line by line of, this is in my account. I have a piece of this guy. I have 50% of this guy. I have 20% of this guy. I'm watching the risk on this guy. I've done this. And one of the reasons I actually wanted to break up was, besides that, I had significant money in my account and I needed his permission to get a check. And he's like, well, talk to me in 3 days. And I'm like, no, like, I'm done with this. But the other reason was we had this software we called Rock Sim. And we were using, you're talking about Montrek Rubber, but we built our own software. Leon Gross, who's still in the business, built it for us. And he wanted, there was something wrong with the software because of coming up on, I don't know, there's an issue with the software with dating on it. And Leon wanted, I don't remember the number at the time, like 150,000 a year to update it. And Jeff wanted to handle with him. And Leon's like, see ya, like, I'm done. And I needed the software to work. So when I spun away and, he owed me a bunch of money, I took 100 specialist books in Philadelphia and, a bunch of money and spun away and formed Gateway. I immediately hired, we had Sean, who's down in Philly, Jimmy Michaels, you may know the name, down in Philly. And Jimmy spent 3 months or 6 months at home building our gateway trading system, GTS, and came through. And that was like a game changer for us because it was, super cutting edge. The only people who had anything like it was Knight, or maybe like some of the bigger CBOE traders had built some stuff or whatever. But we built our own software for individual traders. We had Fujitsu, a hot sync thing, so people were wireless in the crowd. We were like the first to be wireless with execution there as well. You can move the vols around. And then we were watching risk upstairs, and my brother was watching risk upstairs every second of the day, watching individual risk and watching portfolio risk. And we were capable of messaging everybody saying, hey, Thursday afternoon, we're coming to a long weekend. Vol's really coming in. Move your numbers down for the first couple of months. Anyone who sees anything that's of fair value, because we're buying a standard or 2 standard underneath, start whacking it, because we started trading what I call dispersion, or the like individual P&Ls were not compensated on. We were trading as a firm itself. So if some guy was in Brocade and buying things 4 standard deviations cheap, and we were able to sell similar stuff in the QQQ fair value, we're sort of locking in 4 standard, locking in a fortune. But that's not, should he be compensated on that? How about the guy who's selling the other side, sort of locking it? So we started going towards more paying people as the firm did, and writing considerably large checks, of which we would explain to people, make sure you put this away, stop buying 3 cars, stop buying a car, because everyone knows that, the merry-go-round could stop at any second.
That's a good story, Mike. And this is all, you were in New York. Was anybody else spread out? Did you have anybody on the CBOE, the P-Coast?
So as Rock Remen, we were on the P-Coast, the CBOE, 2 or 3 on the P-Coast, 3 or 4 on the CBOE. When I spun away to Gateway, we may have had 1 person on each one of those floors. We were primarily in the Philadelphia, stock exchange, the American stock exchange, where we had specialist books on both. And we were close to 50 employees, leading up to 2000. Yeah, 2000, we made more money than I could ever imagine a kid from Queens could make. It was, between that and between Sean and Jimmy and me, and watching everything and hedging everything and doing things, we are killing it. 2001, the exact opposite. We started losing more money than you could ever imagine. A bleed every day. Thinking about payroll coming out every 2 weeks was like getting your throat cut. Like, I was just like, what are we going to do here? And the reason everything changed was we went from the house to the customer. And how did we go from the house to the customer? Well, decimalization was one. Payment for order flow was another. So there's more things. Now we're paying $1 contract. We're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to have order flow come to our Tyco on the Amex than the Tyco on the other exchanges. But the real killer was like multi-listing, right? Like, they won that lawsuit. All of a sudden, Intel, which I was a local in, was in 6 exchanges. So I stood in the back months. someone would come in and say, how the January, XYZ options, and you'd say, 8 to a quarter, and they would look at the screen, they'd see that they were 8.5 bids somewhere else, and they were offered at 7 3/4 somewhere else. All the exchanges were posting their stuff, but there was no inter-exchange connectivity at that point. So when a broker from Merrill or some big name or Goldman walks in, and he's got a couple hundred to buy, and he sees he could buy them below your bid. I'm bidding 8, but he could buy them at 7 3/4. He says to you, if you don't sell me some, I'm never going to bring another order here. So now you're selling below your bid or on your bid to keep the order flow, to lose thousands of dollars just in hopes of, and then you go and pick up the phone and try and get a broker to go down there to clear the order flow, and there was nothing there. So you're playing against fake quotes that are all over the place, and anything about, pricing on options, volatility is very meaningful the further out you go, and that was happening all the time. So I just said at one point, me and we're talking with Sean and Jimmy and my brother, I'm like, this is like a no-go. Like, who wants to do this? Who wants to win? And then they were rolling up different trading firms, and Knight, I think it was who was it? I'll think of it in a second. Ralph Ercole, who just passed away, may he rest in peace, came to me like, we want to buy you. And I'm like, I'm interested. Tell us what your software looks like. And I'm like, no, we're not showing you the software. I don't want to show you what we're using because it's just too sophisticated. Like, we had Edge. And they actually flew me up in a private, this guy named Effie Gildor, who is Israeli, he built their system for Knight, Israeli fighter pilot, said, I'll show you mine first. So they flew us up to Westchester, and we got to see their software, and then we spoke about our software. And theirs was actually a little more sophisticated than us, but very, very similar in terms of, I'll call the dials that you could dial in and really get things right. And they eventually made an offer to buy, all the books. They wanted to make sure everyone was trying to figure out how to cover every book, every name, all whatever there was, 1,000 or 2,000 names. So they have 200 on this exchange, 200 here, so they could direct their order flow to their book. And they made me an offer maybe right before 9/11, like a month before 9/11, and we were trying to consummate the whole thing. I'm like, done. I'm gonna go home with my positions, and we'll figure everything out. And then 9/11 happened. I was there for that. I won't get into that. It's horrific.
Come on. What do you mean you're not going to get into it?
All right. So 9/11.
Yeah.
Trading before the opening. I'm at a booth in the back of Intel. Plane hits. They make an announcement, or someone says something. They're like, trading as usual, though. We're going to open at 9:30. It's like, I don't know, 8:30, 8:45, the first plane. I thought it was a Piper Cub or something. Like, I don't know. I didn't think it was a full-blown jet. And I'm like, let me just go out there and just see what's going on. I got 10 employees. They're like, hey, Mike, what's going on? Like, whatever. I feel responsible. I tried to walk north, the 2 blocks to the tower, and there's just too much ash coming down in my eye. So I walked west to the West Side Highway, which is only 2 blocks over, and saw some horrific things along the way. People were covering up body parts and things with sheets and stuff like that. And then I got to the West Side Highway, and someone's car was there, crashed from a 5-gallon drum that had come off the top of the tower, I guess. And I said, oh, you'll be okay. Like, back of the car, it's only a car. Get out of the car, you're all right. And then I heard a giant roar. And I looked up, it was the second jet. And I didn't understand yet what was going on. And I said to myself, oh my God, I could see the rivets on that plane. I've never seen a plane that low, like that close up. I could literally see, the rivets. And then the jet banked like this and disappeared behind the Vista Hotel and hit the other tower. Like, I was just inches away from, I could have leaned out and almost seen it. And that's when I realized what was going on. I was just shaking like a leaf at that point. They're throwing planes at us. And I stood behind the Vista Hotel for about 30 seconds as I thought stuff would rain down. I ran back to the Amex, and I said to these guys, get off the island. I just saw a jet hit the tower. And they all took off, and I said, just stay away from the World Trade Tower area. And I went to go leave, and the main entrance of the Amex was stacked up with people, and they're like, no, you can't leave, stay here for your safety. So then I went to the members entrance. I'm not one to listen to people like telling me what I can't do. In the members entrance, there was a guy there, and he's like, "You can't leave. I have orders to keep you here." And I was still in my trading jacket, my trading shoes. I trade shoes every day because you want the soft shoes on your feet. And I said to him, "This guy is 6'1" and 220 pounds, and I'm going to count to 3, and I'm coming through that door. And if you don't let me out, I'm going to fuck you up." I said, "I just want to leave the Amex. I want to get off the floor and leave." And he sort of looked at me and said, "Okay, but you can't come back." And I said, "Okay." And I left, and I made my way around south over to the Hudson River and came up the Esplanade past Gateway Plaza, where people were watching the tower burn, eating breakfast. It was very surreal to me, like just hanging out, like, oh my God. And I was watching as I came in view of the towers. I was watching people jump hand in hand. It was just fucking brutal. And I couldn't watch that anymore. I made my way around the cove there, the Winter Garden Cove, to get on the ferry to go back to Hoboken, the World Financial Center ferry. And the line was long. And I sort of got on and just kept, just no one was saying a word. And I just kept moving, like trying to get in. The ferry, which holds, I don't know, I'll say 200 people, had to have 1,500 people on it. No one said a word. They just kept piling back in, like very, very tight. And we got halfway across the Hudson, and someone said, "Oh, the tower's falling." And I thought to myself, what an ass. He doesn't know anything. That tower's never falling. And turned around, and there was Lower Manhattan disappearing behind a gigantic cloud of dust, eventually just disappearing completely. The first tower had fallen. And the brain trust at the Amex then decided that everyone needs to leave and sent them out in the middle of that toxic storm of cloud of stuff to get away from there. And consequently, 20-something years later, people have contracted cancer and died. And we now found out that walking back, when the Amex opened a couple of weeks later, and they had sort of like, I'll call them cattle cars set up, like, pens, like almost wooden, plywood stuff to get past the pit. We now found out that breathing all that stuff, that bad smell was bad for you. And I eventually got single cell carcinoma cancer and lost a kidney. And now I'm cancer free, thank God. But this is, 4 years later, 20 years later, guaranteed it was from that. And then eventually, once we reopened, Knight came back, wanted to buy it, but the Amex order flow they had lost some order flow that was going to other exchanges because they weren't open for a couple of weeks, right? So it was going, down to Philly or the CBOE where they didn't have that. And they came back with a price that was like 10 or 20% lower. And I said, "You own it. Like, I'm done." Like, I knew a bunch of people that died on Windows in the World, making markets to lose money. There's no connection, like the whole thing, the luster of the floor had worn off. The big mistake I made was just taking my ball and going home, so to speak, like Charlie Brown kind of stuff. And I should have formed a little hedge fund with my top traders and kept trading from off floor. They all went on to successful careers at other big trading firms, Bluefin and other places and things like that.
Didn't some
Mike,
trade?
did you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Some traders from the MX go to the Philly floor to trade?
Yeah. I'm sure they did, and I think I remember sending some down there to help out and stuff like that. Philly was a great home. I will tell you a cute story. We used to hire traders out of UPenn, and we'd bring them in. They want to be traders on the floor, and we'd if they were accepted, we'd put them through class, sort of math class, trading class. Eventually put them on a seat, put them in a crowd with our software. We taught them how to trade. Sean would do the interviews for sort of the math and stuff like that. And I would do the interview after, and they'd sit down. I'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're, "Okay." I'm like, "Let me ask you a question. Can you be here at 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week, ready to work, sober, not needing a cigarette, not needing to head to the bathroom, not eating breakfast, and not needing to do other things, and then work the whole day?" And they'd say, like, "What time?" Like you knew they just, no matter how smart they were, they just couldn't figure out how to get up. It's such a weird thing to me. And you'd realize, like, right away, it didn't matter how smart the guy was. He just wasn't going to show up. We didn't sort of care. like in today's crazy day, we didn't care what you did at night or who you did it with. We just wanted you to be sober in the morning and be there and be a body, because having those bodies was super important when the shit hit the fans, and educating them and trading stuff. And we didn't need, you know, people, prima donnas and stuff like that. We needed people to get in the crowds and do what they're going to do and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just tough hiring people. And still to this day and age, like people just, I guess, can't get to work. I used to say to people I liked, I'd say, I'm going to help you with this. I say, take your alarm clock that's by your nightstand and pick up and plug it in on the other side of the room. I said, so when it goes off, you got to get out of bed. You're in your skivvies, it's cold, and you'll be awake. Then get in the shower and you'll get to work. So,
hey guys, seriously, didn't we? That's kind of so ridiculous, because the hours that we had were the best hours of any job.
Right.
Especially if you were here in, you know, in Chicago here. I mean, 8:30 to 3.
yeah. No, but just people.
That's just
Some people just can't, you know, they can't, you know, function. They can't get up properly. They just don't understand. And other people get there, they just, you know, they're at the water cooler, then they need a cigarette, and now they need some breakfast, and now they have to go to the bathroom. It's like, what do I need you for? Like, I need your body there and stuff like that. I will tell you, one of the things that made us kind of successful was when we had the valuation software. We traded so much on the Philly floor that we had 6 or 7 people going through every trade we did in the morning at 7 in the mornings to get ready for the opening, and trying to check them versus the clearing agent versus our software. And that was tedious, you know, checking 3s and 5s and 10s or hundreds. Like, we traded millions of options, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of options every day, and millions of shares every day. And then we wrote, or Jimmy wrote, what I call a robo-clerk. And it was a basic piece of software that made our life so much interesting. It compared the database that First Options or Spear Leads had given us versus the database of what was inputted into our software, and immediately kicked out the ones that were either you put in as a sell and it's a buy, or the price is wrong, and kick them out. And that's all you had to go over. So we took our crew from 7 or 8 people down to like 2 people, and instead of taking 2 hours, it took, you know, 40 minutes, and it was very, you know, it was big. And you know, and what I'm doing now in Gilder, I'm a international community. You know, we use all sorts of different software. Like, software is just going to eat the world. It's super important, and even then, we learned very quickly, you know, how great it was.
Mark, do you remember your question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying about after, well, first going back, like after the 87 crash, the market closed at like noon for a couple weeks because they were so backlogged on all the, you know, everything was paid back then, which people don't realize. And then obviously 9/11, the market had never been closed for more than 4 days in a row. Like, I don't think ever. And, you know, the 9/11 was on a Tuesday, and they didn't reopen until the following Monday. And that's when, you know, a lot of guys from the AMEX came to the PHLX, you know, for those couple weeks. I remember walking into, you know, FOC, or was the Spear Leads, I forget which one, and seeing, you know, there was like 100 guys up there, 50 guys. I'm like, what's going on here? And, you know, so even though, you know, we weren't there, we got to hear all the stories like the one you just told, you know, firsthand, and you know, try to work well with the traders from the Amex. And, you know, it was like, even though we were all in competition with each other, it was really cool to see, you know, most people, you know, just, you know, we were all in the same boat, you know, and all trying to make money. And it was a cool experience.
Yeah. So I was recently talking to a guy in Saudi Arabia who was a famous football player or something. And I was trying to explain to him that the camaraderie, the relationship of people on the floor was nothing like, you know, it's how many traders were there between all the floors? You know, not a lot. Yeah. So it was a very tight community that no one was completely aware of, didn't understand. And when I talk to people, and like I'm on a bunch of boards, and they say, oh, tell me about this and that, I like, yeah, I was a market maker and a specialist, similar to the 1980s movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. Those guys who yells and screams and hand signals. And they sort of, like, a lot of people have seen it. Maybe I'm aging myself. It's a funny movie. It's a good movie. But but then they understand it. But like most people didn't know it existed. I didn't know it existed until my brother had met his father-in-law, and he said, you know, what do you do for a living? And he was selling like audio at Sam Goody's or something part-time. And he said, you're not going to make enough money there to pay my daughter's cosmetics. You should come down on the trading floor. And that's how it all started. So it wasn't for Al, may he rest in peace, passed away a couple of years ago. I never would have, my brother never would have had access to the floor. I never would have had access to the floor and spent all those years there. And it was, you know, good time. Like, you know,
Mike, that's the first time I've heard Sam Goody's in 40 years, just so you know.
Yeah.
he was grandpa, and grandpa had two sons. One went to college and one didn't. And we had, you know, 10 or 15 grandchildren. We'd all thought we'd be running Sam Goody's. We were all college educated. Like this was going to be the greatest thing in the world. And he ended up selling his company to American Can for a paltry amount of money, and selling his name. And then his sons started, you know, fighting over stealing his money or something. And that was the end of us running Sam Goody's. Good grandpa, lots of good surprises, paid for my college, gave me $1,000 towards a car. Can't complain. I wish that we could have run Sam Goody's. The name would still be around. God knows what we could have done with it. But he, being the great businessman that he was, had two sons that were nowhere near his business acumen, and he just didn't feel safe or something. I will tell you, it was in the heyday of the Hunt Silver thing, where they were corralling the Hunts, and Grandpa figured out a way to drive business, which was, if you bring in $1 worth of silver, we will give you, I don't remember the number, $5 in a gift certificate towards the purchase of, you know, Sam Goody merchandise. That could be records, albums. At the time, they had 8-tracks, stereos. And then all the silver that came in through all the stores was funneled to his 49th Street store, where he went through each coin hand by hand to pick out the coins that he didn't want to melt because they were worth way more, because kids had taken their dad's collections and turned them in. Yeah. And he, so I used to go to the store as a kid, his 49th Street store, and they had this giant safe, and he'd open it up, and there's rolls and nickels and quarters and half dollars. And I had this giant collection where I filled every book and stuff like that or whatever. He was, you know, he did things like that. It was great. I wish he would have held on to it. But I guess if we would have held on to it, maybe I wouldn't have even
That's
been.
right. I was just going to say that. No.
And now I have large groups of friends from Philly and the Amex, and now from other things I'm doing. So sometimes it's hard to remember, was it a PHLX person or an Amex person, because some people went back and forth between them.
Let me ask you this. When you were trading in the heyday, this is like your heyday, your prime, what number did you love? Like when it came to, you know, unemployment or the Fed making an announcement, do you remember one number that just was it was a winner every single time?
You know, over the years, the numbers changed, what people are looking for, money supply, this, that, you know, and now we see all the numbers are just completely manipulated, you know, right now, and they can't be true and stuff like that. No, it's just, you know,
Nothing stands out.
Nothing stands out in terms of, you know, I was on the floor for the sort of 89 mini crash, which was UAL deal got broke or something. That was another one. So in the back of my mind now, when I look at the stock market, and I started, the Dow was below 1,000, and, you know, now it's insane. It seems like to me, just as a, you know, June 18th, 2024, when I look at these stocks, like it's like a market of stocks, not a stock market. And there's maybe 4 or 5 stocks that seem to be holding all this up, you know, the NVIDIAs of the world. And I wonder in my back of my mind why the market hasn't come in 10 or 20%. It could very easily, you know, and a lot of people levered and stuff like that, but it just keeps going on. So those who've managed to be invested have done very well, and kudos to them. But now at least, you know, interest rates up at 5%, you can think about, if you're older, peeling out of the stock market and having some real income. When the interest rates were held low forever by, you know, both Trump and Biden, or the, you know, the people running it, it was just too low for too long, and it, you know, caused all this kind of, you know, liquidity to flow in there. So we'll see what the, you know, if the shoe ever falls. I have no idea. I hope we don't get something like this. But I cannot see how the stock market is where it is.
No, that's cool. Like, but
Yeah.
that's a 1 day. That's a 1 day average now. The 87
Oh,
crash.
it was down. It was down 500 points. You had GM from 66 down to 15. So that's 20-30%. Like all the stocks were just destroyed. The SPOOs were down 80. It's crazy stuff. Yeah, I guess it is. Sort of the higher number. So we'll see. But
Let me ask you this.
options are flourishing, and people who are not using options for hedging or extra income or all sorts of different things, like it's crazy. It should be almost in everyone's portfolio, certainly in every institutional portfolio. There's a lot that could be done, and there's still plenty of liquidity that could be garnered through the institutional people.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you this. And again, just get off trading here just for a sec. And you mentioned that was the prank with the with the fake stock. I mean, that's brutal.
Brutal to the point of almost a heart attack. Yes.
I feel sorry for that broker.
Yeah. I've seen it. I felt so bad.
What other? I mean, another prank that from the MX.
They had they'd make a hatchet out of paper with like a bloody kind of end, and they'd put it on your back. And as a new broker or new trader, you'd be sort of unaware. But as you walk by, everybody would be going, today it's probably not allowed, but like you've been hit with the hatchet.
Right.
Or they would sneak up on you in the trading crowd and baby powder your shoes. Typically people wore black shoes, like very thick soles for being on the floor. And they'd start yelling, it's July, and they're like, it's snowing here in New York. And like you'd be oblivious. No, it's not. What are you talking about? Kind of stuff. But they did have a lot of what I'll call, and there's other pranks that they did, but they had a lot of betting on the floor. And they would bet different things like, can you drink a gallon of water in like, I don't remember the number, 15 minutes? And it seems kind of easy, but it's not. The body just can't hold a gallon of water. And big money be bet. They bet, can you eat 10 Big Macs in 12 minutes or something? Like, and all these things, like there would be big money bet. There was once a guy, Evan Lovett, whose dad was a big wig on the floor, and he was a baseball player, big stocky guy. And they were betting on the Amex because we had the vaulted ceiling, and I don't know how high it was, maybe 100 feet or something. And they're betting from his knees, because he was a catcher, can he throw a baseball to hit the ceiling? Which he was actually able to do, which is insane, like straight up. But there was a lot of betting, things like that. They did members outings where there's lots of betting and gambling and stuff. It was beat in there. And I remember one in particular, we're in Intel, and sitting around like sort of on milk boxes, and somebody's like, how many push-ups can you do? Like I'm like, I don't know, 45 at the time or something. I don't know, like 10, 20, like, I don't know. So then they started like betting, and they'd pair off people. And they'd say, you and you together versus this guy. And they bet like sizable amount of money, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, people throwing 10s, 20s, 50s in there based on how many. And I remember I did like 20, and I just needed this skinny clerk to do 10. And he was from Asia, and he sort of, I guess, never did a push-up before. So he's doing these push-ups where his like body was not going straight up, but he's like going up, like on this undulating thing or something. And they had like a floor official there trying to count them, like 1, 2, and he had to just do like 10, but he couldn't even do 10. It was like, come on, you can't do 10. You're 20 years old. Like, how could you not do 10 push-ups? I'm 40 years old. Let's go. Crazy times on the floor. Some of the brokers, as a trader on the floor, when brokers would come in, especially the $2 brokers, and they had an error, they would come back to, they should have bought them and sold them, or they bought the wrong price. And they'd have these errors that were sometimes expensive, like they're down $3 or $4 grand, and they'd come into the crowd and say, I need help. And typically, I would raise my hand and say, I'll take 10 of them. Like, I'll take $500 worth of it. Like, I don't care. And the reason I would do that is I know he doesn't want to write it out his error account because it's coming out of him personally. And I know I could sort of absorb it on the day trading. But I knew the next time he walked into the crowd with a juicy order, and there's 100 guys going, give me, he'd go, you 20 or you 50 kind of thing. And then as a payback, a lot of times that the whole crowd would like sort of take, 3 or 4 apiece. Sometimes they'd bring in like 1,000 White Castle hamburgers and hand out like 100 to each crowd. Like they'd hand you like a 10-pack or something like that. So it was a real, it was a real scene on the floor. And I think people would be kind of crazy to understand what was going on. In the 80s, a lot of partying, lots of things that you would think were going on, and a lot of things like that.
Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, real quick. I was saying, especially in terms of the betting, that stuff like that, or even with you say the push-ups or watching a car chase. I remember the TVs that when the TV's on the PHLX, it was only on CNBC. And people used to ask to like, hey, put the baseball game on. But then eventually they would put, when there was a car chases like in California, they put them on the TV and trading would stop. Like whether somebody was doing push-ups or eating Big Macs, or trading would actually stop, and everybody was crowding around like watching this stuff, it was just crazy.
I will tell you this: CNBC was always on. More recently, I was at Lee Cooperman, a famous trader, Goldman partner, ran a fund, was at the New Jersey PAC talking. Great guys. Took the Buffett Challenge, going to give his billions away, donating to everything in sight, education and stuff in Newark and stuff. And sitting next to me, this lady sits next to me, and I sort of glance over, married a long time, but she's kind of cute. And I'm like, I feel like I know her. But like, I don't want to be staring at her and talking or whatever. And then she goes to ask a question. She's like, and she knows Lee. She's like, hi, Lee, Becky. It's Becky Quick from CNBC sitting next to me.
No kidding.
And I'd seen her, for 20 years on the screen. But it was nice to say hello to her. And Joe Kernan I had met locally here, stuff like that. But I would tell you, I remember Jeff Bezos first starting Amazon, and he would be on CNBC, and he talking like that, like it was very funny, a very weird guy, and people would make fun of him all the time. Look at that guy, whatever. He's got the last laugh, right? He's buff, and he's one of the richer guys in the world, or something like that. But
okay, we'll end it with this, or a couple things. Did you have the death pool on the MX?
Yeah, they had stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, to me, that was the best.
And boxes, they were selling boxes not for $5, $10, they were $100 or $1,000.
Yeah. Everybody's dying. George Burns will go before, Milton Berle or something like that. It was, and the kitty was, it got to be really high. Like whoever won that pool, whoever died next, made a shitload of money. So the death pool was always my favorite. But we'll end it with this, Mike. If you had to do it all over again, would you?
Yeah. But I would have instead of chasing skirt and trying to party very, very hard. I would have paid attention more and understood the math more and done more. So I regret that for sure. But
okay, no regrets. I'm just about the floor and kind of working on the floor. Would you?
No, it's the greatest thing in the world. Like how could of course, like it was great. The people you met, as I said, there was doctors and lawyers and people that came down to trade at every walk of life, everything, like PhDs, everything. Everybody was down there. Was risk capital. There was a large group on the Amex of people that played professional poker, Go, a Chinese gambling game,
backgammon,
bridge, lots of professional bridge players. They all sort of coincide. So when you talk about some firms hiring people and forcing them to play poker ahead of time, gives you a good idea of their risk taking and understanding where the value is.
Okay, cool, man. Hey, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.
A pleasure, gentlemen. Always
Yes.
good to reminisce there. Know you forever. So happy, hopefully a successful continuation. Let's get this up there and move on.
Have some fun. So, okay, Mike, thanks again. And Mark,
Yeah.
talk soon. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys.
Cheers.
Message from Daniel Sullivan, CEO at Mogator Media Capital. At Mogator Media Capital, we are dedicated to transforming creative and financial dreams into reality. With a deep understanding of both finance and storytelling, we excel at financial investment and crafting compelling narratives. If you have an idea centered on wealth, money, or anything financial, we want to hear from you. If you're interested in investing in a unique entertainment business model, we want to talk to you. Our approach is distinct. With strong relationships with top production companies, always seeking the next Wolf of Wall Street, MMC exclusively focuses on financial genres, making us the go-to destination for your ideas and investments. When it comes to financial content, we're the ones who can bring your concepts to life. On the financial side, we know how to grow your investments in the entertainment market. Our business plan guarantees a risk-free investment with a guaranteed premium. Sound too good to be true? Let us prove it to you. Visit our website at www.mogatormediacapital.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, select either content or investment and fill out the short form that fits your narrative. Join us at MMC, where finance becomes the star of the show.